All right, so here we are for the last mini lecture for chapter one. So we'll wrap up word classes by discussing a bit more about adverbs. Then we'll introduce preposition, conjunctions, and I've marked out interjections here because we won't really spend much time with those. So this is the third of three lectures on chapter one. Hopefully by this point you are starting to have a solid grasp of word classes. You've completed the homework and hopefully you are feeling more comfortable. There certainly are more handouts, more practice available for you on Blackboard. So if you're having any difficulties, you should absolutely check out those handouts, check out those links to get some more assistance. All right, so just to cycle through some things we've discussed previously, we talked about verbs and verb features in the previous mini lecture. We said verbs are unique for a few different reasons. One of those is that they inflect for tense, meaning they are marked for time. Right? We do not mark nouns, we do not mark adjectives or adverbs in the same way. But in English, verbs are marked to show past, present, or future, right? So we talked about I walked, I will walk. So verbs conjugate, verbs inflect for time. They also inflect for third person singular. So I is first person singular, you second person singular, he, she, it is third person singular. So I study, you study, he, she studies. Right? So there's agreement in third person singular. And verbs also have the ing form, right? I am teaching. They also have the ed participles. I have studied. As we said, verbs agree with and follow the subject. Right, so again, I study, you study, she studies, or he studies. We have some different types of verbs. We have the tenses, past, present, and future. We have auxiliary verbs. You can think of auxiliary verbs as helping, because these verbs are helping another verb, right? She is swimming. We have swam before. Those are both helping the main verb. We have the perfect aspect with verbs such as I had studied, present perfect, I have studied, future perfect, I will have studied. We'll talk about those more later in the course. You don't need to know too much about those now. So quick review of adverbs. Recall that adverbs modify other adverbs, adverbs modify adjectives, and adverbs modify verbs. Primarily, they're modifying verbs. That's generally how they're used most often. And you can see that in the first example, he studies thoroughly. So how does he study thoroughly? He studies carefully, he studies quickly, he studies diligently. All of those ly words are adverbs telling in what manner does he study. Adverbs, we said, also modify adjectives. She's very tall, very modifying the adjective tall. We also have adverbs modifying other adverbs. Too hastily, so hastily, very hastily, quite hastily, rather hastily. Those are adverbs modifying adverbs. We said often adverbs end in ly. We said that adverbs you can move around in the sentence, right? If you move a noun in the sentence, you sound crazy. If you move an adverb around in the sentence, that's perfectly acceptable. A few different types of adverbs. We have adverbs of manner that answer how, adverbs of time that answer when. We have adverbs of frequency that answer how often. So sometimes, right? So I sometimes get a cup of coffee. I never, I rarely, I often. So those are frequency adverbs. We have the adverbs that are intensifiers, that it is rather disappointing, so disappointing, extremely disappointing. So all of those are adverbs as well. So from your homework in exercise 1.11, it asks you to determine whether the underlying words are adverbs or adjectives. So I want to go through these with you. So in number 6, have conducted fascinating split brain studies. So what kind? Fascinating. So here we have fascinating. It's telling us what type of studies. This type of surgery has become rather rare. So rare is an adjective. It is being modified by rather. Adverbs modify adjectives, so rather is an adverb. Recently, we talked about these being comment adverbs. So when you have this word at the beginning of a sentence that's followed by a comma, this could be however, consequently, moreover, additionally. All of those are followed by a comma. All of those are adverbs. An amazing organ. What kind of organ? Amazing. Extremely important data. Okay, so here we can work backwards. So we have data, which is a noun. We have, well, what kind of data is it? Important. So important is an adjective modifying data. Extremely, then, is an adverb modifying the adjective important. So let's talk about prepositions. So prepositions indicate time and space and display spatial relationships. So we see prepositions, they occur at the beginning of a prepositional phrase, such as in the morning, on the train, under consideration, in the car, in the classroom, below the apartment. All of those are indicating a space. All of those are followed by a noun, right? So we see in the morning, on the train, consideration. So a preposition must be followed by a noun. It has to be followed by a noun. So a prepositional phrase then is your preposition plus the noun. Okay, so that noun is called the object of the preposition. Now, if you look at these other examples, such as out and around, here those are adverbs. Notice these are not followed by prepositions. So John went out. Here, this is an adverb of place, adverb of location. Where did he go? Out. We looked around. Where did we look? Around. Okay, so in these two examples, out and around are not prepositions because they are not followed by nouns. I remember when I was in elementary school, to remember prepositions, we would draw a car on our piece of paper and then write all of the words that we could think about in relation to the car, such as on the car, in the car, under the car, behind the car, in front of the car. All of those are prepositions. All of those are showing a location relationship. So any word that you could put on this image, those would be prepositions. So prepositional phrases, we'll talk about this a lot more in the next chapter, but just briefly here, the apartment next to the HEB is Steve's. The apartment on the corner, the apartment behind the house. Right? Those prepositional phrases are actually telling us which apartment we're talking about. So prepositional phrases sometimes work as adjectives. Right? So if we look at the restaurant, so the restaurant on Alameda, the restaurant next to the supermarket, the restaurant near my house, and all of those prepositions near my house, near the supermarket, those are all adjective prepositional phrases because they're helping us to identify the noun. So the next word class we'll talk about are conjunctions. You may remember an acronym FANBOYS, FANBOYS, that stands for uh, neither, but, or, yet, or so. Right? So all of those are conjunctions. So John ate the pie, but Jim ate the cake. Right? So here's an example where a conjunction is joining two independent clauses. So an independent clause just means a sentence that could stand alone. So John is the subject, ate the pie is the predicate of the first independent clause. Because that is an independent clause, it must be followed by a comma and then a conjunction. But conjunctions, as you'll see in the bottom part, can also connect parts of the sentence. So John and Jim ate the pie. So here we're connecting two nouns. John ate the pie and the cake. John ate the pie and drank a beer. In that last sentence, there is no comma because there's only one independent clause. Okay, we can see that pattern here with the commas where everybody knows me, comma, but nobody returns my calls. In the second, I remember he said it cost us the Super Bowl, comma, but I don't want him to feel that way. So again, these conjunctions they have a comma with them because all of these are connecting two independent clauses. And then finally, we have correlative conjunctions, and these work together, both and, either or, neither nor, not only, but also. So both Robert and Steve, either San Antonio or Golden State. Those are using correlative conjunctions to connect parts of the sentence. So that is all for word classes. We have talked about nouns, adjectives, adverbs, verbs, pronouns, prepositions, and conjunctions. Your task for quiz 1 will be to identify word classes in sentences and divide subjects and predicates. So you have 3 handouts available on Blackboard that will help you practice this. The answers are also available. So please work through those carefully in preparation for quiz number 1.